spacing, I compressed the spacing, and if there were stanzas, I left the stanzas that work. So I figure what we'll do is like get them all, put them in, send down and say, check it, because if you don't, we're not. And like that. It should be simple. All right, so I'm gonna get started up here, ladies and gentlemen. So look at, so am I on?
What do you mean, please? Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, no, we need to get you higher.
Okay, I gotta get higher.
No, we gotta get this, we have to pull this up.
Oh, yeah, just go like that.
Oh, like that?
Yeah. Now, is it now?
Yeah, that's great.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hear ye, the spirits are about to speak. And if you ask if they are friendly spirits, like they're supposed to, I will say, just listen. So, I'm the host of this, the longest, currently, I'll start all over again. Welcome to Sacred Grounds. With me as your host, this is the longest running open mic in known and unknown universe, serving up good food and fine poetry since 1972. Think about that. It was here before the exposition. Please support this reading by enjoying the food and drinks served here, and give a big hand for Teddy back there, our host. Without him, we wouldn't be here. Quid pro quo. Don't quote me. Poetry of all kinds, ladies and gents, is welcome, but we do ask you to respect the mic. Keep conversations to a whisper, put phones on mute or vibrate, and do not distract the speakers by passing in front of them. So I'm going to put my phone on dead. There we go. Yes, kill it. I'll also keep to the time limit, usually 5 minutes, but that can change if it gets crowded. Sometimes we slice the time, so be aware of that. Remember, we have 2 shows, the 7-ish, which this one is, and the 8:40-ish, which is coming up. And for those reasons, I ask for generosity. By going short on your time, it helps with our tradition of getting everyone on the mic. And that's what I'd like to do, make sure everybody gets up there, gets to see what they want to say. See what they want to say? Oh, I'm gonna stop taking those pills. If you want to be in the loop, we have an opt-in mailing list, a Facebook page, and a YouTube channel, and we stream live, which is right over here. Now, streaming is handy in 5 ways, we'd like to say that. You can view in from home, should you want to do that. Of course, if you're here, you can't do that. You would if you do think, why would you be viewing in front of you? Never mind. You, family or friends can see you live or later on, that's true. If you want to hear so-and-so's poem again, why would you want to hear his? You know? Geez, that guy just never stops. If you want to do a self-critique, I mean, really, go ahead. If you really want to, that's fine. And it's a way to put out the word yours, mine, or ours. Thank you. The ongoing theme. Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And that's by dear Margaret Mead. Now, Margaret, yes. Now, we do have an evenings theme. I mean, that's the general ongoing. But this evening's theme is air relevant. And you take that as you like it, as you may. The keynote for the evening is Tommy Omega. Just so he knows. Our feature, Alan Bird, is right over here. He's going to give the wave so you know who. He's giving a nice round of applause. Welcome in, Mr. Alan Bird. The second show, the last word, is Mr. Richard Sanderell kicking off the second half. He's back there, but he's wearing a hat and he's shaking his head. He doesn't know him. Our mini feature is David Erdreich, right here. Even though he's not Scottish, I'm speaking a bad Scottish accent. And let's see what else is there. Oh, the door prizes. Be advised that all do record the evening, and if an audience member wishes to do so, please ask permission. We'll assume you have done so should we notice recordings being made. Now there's a specialty here this evening. Where did that go? I just had it. So there are 2 special things besides Alan. Wait a minute. We'll be recognizing the worldwide reading for the freedom of press in memory of Jamal Khashoggi. I heard it said Khashoggi and Khashoggi, I'm not sure which. And it's also the 70th anniversary, as far as December 10th goes, of the Declaration of Human Rights. So just in case you want to know, those are 2 things that are on the menu this evening. Jamal Khashoggi and the Declaration of Human Rights, which those 2 things go hand in hand. and realizing that I printed this thing off poorly. So, the door prizes, let me just go over here, because that way I don't have to go back and forth. This is going to be inside one of them. It's Gene Kelly's Gotta Dance. It's a program from the, it says, the Stanford Theater Foundation, and it has to be old. This is poetry, January 2011. This is You and Three Others Are Approaching a Lake. Poems by Anna Moskovakis. Moskovakis. I'll go with that pronunciation because otherwise. Another poetry magazine again from February 2011. Then there is this handy dandy Poets Machine. It is a nice little book with pen included. It is. And now this is called The Lure of the Limerick. The Lure of the Limerick by William S. Baring Gould.
I want it.
I'll just drop it over there. The limerick packs laughs anatomical into a space that is quite economical. But the good ones I've seen are so seldom clean, and the clean ones are so seldom, and the clean ones so seldom are comical. Okay. I mean, he's doing a nice job. Then if you don't like those, as they say, that doesn't float your boat, you can choose next week's theme or prompt, which today is air relevant. Thank you, David. Being the mini feature, which of course is who? Oh, that's David E., the mini feature. David, you should have said something. The keynote, which Tommy is this evening. He'll be speaking first, reading a poem by someone else before he comes back for the open. And then the co-pilot, who's sitting right here, kicking me under the table to say, please don't tell that joke about the penguin.
Please don't.
Okay, so there's two penguins are on an ice floe, and one penguin says to the other, it looks like you're wearing a tuxedo. And the second penguin says, well, who's to say I'm not?
Oh, he told it anyway.
I told it. And then the last word, which is Mr. Sandro, who kicks off the second show and closes it out, as we like to say. So that takes care of all the nonsense. And
I need to read who's coming up.
oh, sorry, thank you. He is going to take care of the business of the evening while I relax in haste and Acapulco in my mind. All right, so there you are. You're ready.
Tommy Abacola Mecca.
Tommy Abacola Mecca, the keynote of the evening. Richard, you like it? Let me just frame you there, dear. There you go.
Okay, I've been framed, and I've dropped all my papers.
It's okay. I do that all the time.
Okay.
Brag.
Yeah. Anyway,
Hey.
so I'm going to be reading from Jack VC. I imagine most people don't know him. He was a gay male poet. I met him in Philly in the 70s when we were both part of his poetry scene, and Jack and I kept in touch until he died about 2 years ago. So I'm going to read a couple short things from him. This is called At Home. Nice weather today. We're standing on our doorstep chatting. Two teenage boys walk by in the middle of the street. They're both staring at us intently. I meet their eyes as if to say, what's the problem? Is it my hump or the horns? One nudges the other and says, just loud enough so we can hear, I told you they're faggots. See how they're staring at us?
Okay.
And knowing Jack, that's probably a true story. To people who complain that my poems are too dark, how dark can anything be that turns a light on in your head, no matter what it lets you see? Yeah, Jack could be heavy sometimes. And finally, pigeons, because they were his favorite birds. When I worked at Morrow's Nut House during high school, a pigeon flew in through the front door, held open too long by an elderly lady while she lugged in one bag too many. Gray-headed, red-footed, and gurgling, the bird dodged my broom and fluttered under the display case glass, flopping down on a sticky arrangement of bright green jelly candies. Huddling there as if to hide in the midst of its own ruffled feathers. It cooed and clucked and poked its head around and looked up curiously and didn't peck me when I picked it up. Took it outside on Market Street and gave it back to a warm breeze laced with exhaust fumes. My next task, dictated by my sour-faced old maid boss with pale hands withered like dried fruit, was to pick out the fragments of feather and other debris the damn bird might have left behind and put the candy back out there for sale.
Yeah.
I did as I was told, remembering his heartbeat in my hands and how my mother always said pigeons were filthy, full of lice and strange diseases.
Yummy.
He hadn't seemed itchy or sick, just a little perplexed. And when he'd flown away, I envied him. I didn't last at Morrow's Nut House. I got fired for calling off due to a favorite uncle's unforeseen demise, and never held a pigeon in my hands again. Now I only stop in Philadelphia to change trains on my way to New York City, which I only visit rarely. In the 30th Street station, there's a food court. If there's time, I find a table and I write. There's always a pigeon or two that gets into the station and wanders on the floor between the tables, bobs its head hunting for scraps, cooing and burbling. There you go. Thank you. Thank you for the sound effect. One table I picked was splattered with white droppings. People ignore the pigeons or they feed them, killing time until the next train. I watch and wonder at their lack of fear, clutching a ticket I'd never need if I had wings. Thank you.
I'm handing him the attribution sheet so that whenever you read a poem by someone else,
Steve Hendricks is up.
Steve, you're not new here, right? You've been here a while. All right, give him a round of applause, please. Thank you, David. Woo! Just really close so we can get you. There we go. There we go. Thank you, David.
Welcome, Daniel.
All right, this is hot off the press, Redshift by Arroyo Seco Press down in Long Beach. If you're interested in supporting small presses, I have a few extra copies for sale. And if you're looking for last minute Christmas gift for those poets in your life.
Selling for
$12. I can taste the ash this time. It has taken up residence on my tongue, found shelter in my nostrils, set up camp in my lungs. It bore witness to the destruction, the lives lost, the lives that need to be rebuilt. I carry their sadness with me. Prima facie. Dedicate this one to the Declaration of Human Rights. "Why are you taking me?" he said, with a look of anguish on his face, like Mook captured in the scream. "The stone is in your hand," they said. "But I merely picked up the stone," he said, "after it struck me." And this last one, despite the expectation. I remember exactly where I was that day, when you called to tell me he was gone. Suddenly, despite the expectation. You told me how you rubbed his arm, spoke to him, believing he could hear, how you were holding his hand when the alarms went off, and the shock and fear drove you mindlessly into the hall to search for a nurse. How when they came back with you, the doctor pronounced him dead, and that was it. You were the last one to see him alive. You were all alone in that hospital room, waiting for your grandmother to arrive, worried about how to share the news. I could hear the tremors in your voice still. The words I said that day did nothing to ease your pain or sense of loss, but they were all I had to give from the distance beyond touch. And I gave them for once, without self-regard, without the expectation of something in return. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Melinda Magoon.
Karen Melander Magoon.
Hey, Karen.
And we got Britt, Rev, David, Buford, Tommy coming back. Owen,
Here,
please.
there were too many, but here's some of your votes
All right.
for disposal. Okay, hi, everybody. Looks like a very joyful, I'm not all seeing all the lights. Okay, is air relevant? All right. I just found this, and it did start out with air. Chill bedroom of the streets. The air is chill, still and cold. The streets bleak. A bit of cardboard on the sidewalk waits to become a mattress. Another piece of feather bed pneumonia and tuberculosis lie in the shadows, ready to embrace the urban refugee, sleepless and hungry in a cold city. That's my air offering. And then to be relevant, revolution, yellow jackets and all that good stuff, and human rights, and 230 years ago, the French conceived a thought inspired by the Enlightenment and America's own Declaration of Independence, a revolution of humankind, freedom, equality, fraternity. The idea caught fire and burned throughout the West, across oceans, across ethnicities, across colors of humanity. The idea burned across the globe, burned across colonialism, burned across countries, monarchies, tyrants, and today burns on, fueled still by an idea. Burning since before 1776 in America, now stirred again by France, its yellow jackets blow upon the fire, sending flames beyond paternalism, beyond their borders, demanding fair taxes, demanding again freedom, equality, fraternity, ideas that must be fed by flames of justice.
All right.
Gotta be relevant, gotta be relevant.
Yellow
Okay.
jacket.
Now, Christmas season 2018. You may not like this. That'd be kind of bleak.
Bleak?
Well, anyway, it's not that bad, but Christmas season, friends are ill, children ill, want to keep the joy still. Still means peace, quiet, goodwill. Surround the cradle, heal, fulfill the dream of Christmas, world without war, end to hate. And something more, we call it love, but that seems trite, overused and lost its light. Yet every time I think of love, my heart is full, it overflows. Heart doesn't know love's worn and old, doesn't know though it's been told, and maybe it's the things we do, the reaching out, the being true, accepting, helping, finding grace in every being, every race, is how the Christmas season heals and wraps us all in one embrace. Thank you. Shall I do two more? Not too long?
Well,
Or
you
shall I
got
go away?
about a minute
Oh, okay,
plus.
that's fine.
ish.
Caravan from Honduras. Light glances off a crushed hat. Limbs shine as they cross the Suchiate River between Guatemala and Mexico, marching into hope. The refugees of Honduras marching together expect no succor, no welcome. Their only daily bread is hope. They sleep if sleep comes under a blanket of hope and fear. And there it is. Also, okay, I'm gonna leave you with one star. One star timidly appears in the night sky, unsure of himself, twinkling, then disappearing. Hiding behind an elusive crescent moon, covered by unseen clouds, drifting shadows pushed across the path of the timid star. Velvet robes sweeping up the dust of the sky in their trek across heavens, bereft of all stars, save one unsure twinkle amid the dust of lost souls.
Turn the legend of the group.
Red Peter.
The mighty Brit Peter. Standing fourth, holding fifth.
The tall Brett Peter.
Just get close to the mic, and we frame you. And
Irrelevant.
ah,
The error of relevance in an untruthful age. Voltaire Payne.
Yep.
Famous poet. Irrelevant. Spicer's lemon, or was it Lorca's? Any lemon, tart and relevant, split open now. Airbrush, breath, Olson's wind tunnel, even our stale air are relevant. The air around Icarus, Bruegel's farmer pays no attention. The heat of the sun, the rapid descent, salt splash, the dispassionate eye of the artist, the relevant telling. This is from an old poet, long ago. Supermarket copy. Where are you this morning, Allen Ginsberg? I look for you at Penn's Sound, the recorded voice, Supermarket Journeys, 1956. A poem located near here. Your recorded voice brings life to the internet. A New Jersey rasp, tight hipster evocations. Commending your brief stay in dear old Berkeley. You're going to the co-op to find a fellow landsman. Finding Whitman wandering over the mangoes. What would you make of our trips to Trader Joe's? Our buying Napa cabbage and ginger? Was that Neruda and Lorca going through the express line? Trader Joe's hip and aging crowd. While in dear old Berkeley, students returned to class. You would have liked the way they still dressed for the 60s. All scraggly, tattooed and fresh. I can imagine you eyeing them, your fleshy smile and laughing eyes. Ghosts wander everywhere. Where are you this morning, Allen Ginsberg?
Rev. This is not your first time here, correct?
Nope.
Okay. Give Rev a round, please, as he comes up here. Get himself set up and organized.
I'm so sorry. Haha, technology. What if I'm Andy Kaufman's ghost and I'm just gonna stand here the whole time like that? No, that's not.
I like Andy.
I love it.
He owes me $5 though, because
Does? I'm not surprised.
I'm just saying. If I ever find that guy, talk to him seriously.
Well, there's two power drivers on the side, on the theater floor. The Rasa Plaza, Atlantic Park, on the theater floor.
I'm not even gonna, well, I guess I'm being recorded. I usually record myself for my ego, but whatever. That's fine. I was startled. This is a reading from the second book of Yolk, chapters 4, 5, and 8. Overflowing cups. Elemental reality has got nothing but love for me, and yet my ego will disagree with this truth that I can plainly see. How long will it remain this way? I really would rather not say. There are so many experts alive today, but their overflowing cups get in the way. And yet nothing is ever what it seems. You're now dwelling in my city of dreams. I adore getting lost in the slipstreams of consciousness where the bright full moon beams. Upon us all with no final judgment, angels and demons were both heaven sent. There is always life that your spirit can rent. Infinity's a forest. Go pitch a tent. Fallen birds. I am afraid of the light. Mistakes I've made always fight. Gratitude and love rain down humility. Folks below and above have got plenty on me. You are how you behave. Actions speak louder than words. From cradles to the grave, from cracked eggs to fallen birds. I have mostly tried to avoid the funny farm. I am terrified of my potential for harm. A solution needs its problem. Oh, what a tangled web we weave. So many are comfortably numb. Always question what you believe. And okay. Lessons. Is it possible to know the true meaning of meaning? Can anyone really show anyone else anything? We're only human after all, and prone to a litany of mistakes. You'd have thought that Lucifer's fall would be the only lesson that it takes. To get our species to understand that almighty karma will always win, all throughout this blessed and cursed land are wars with no end before they begin. But you already knew that madness, didn't you? There is no real way to avoid the savage truth. Regardless of what's found in your point of view, twisted speech will always rain down upon the youth. That is why we must create new schools of thought so that love can provide the pathways that will heal. Believe me, my friends, your soul cannot be bought one way or another. Life's onion we will peel.
You have a cell phone with you? Because you can take a picture of that link, and that's where the video will show up.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. And now, the Honorable David Zeltzer, who is kindly coming forth here. Give him a round of applause. Maybe move it towards this way. And then get it to the right height, and then I can close.
Thank you. It's great to see all of you.
It's great to be seen, as they say in France.
Dark mirage. It looked so real that passing spacecraft had to remember wounds they split open with bestial light waves oozing from my chest. Utter emptiness saw symbols on the blackboard so far away I could see no alien slaves dripping power from their sliced legs. Mop up the despondent crawling staircase. Night is small and shrinking so fast, you're an atom in my eye. Thank you. Brick. I put my ear to the brick and hear no crashing waves, only bird song overwhelming the piazza with avian thunder. Confusing the wayward towers shrouded with scaffolding of unhurried tourists, cold and wondering, what is the pain of life breath hurrying through veins of viper eyes, relaxed and reading omens of night without stars? Poison at the mountaintop, streams, rocks, watered out campfires, a cool breeze through the trees, befuddled and snoozing. The murderous hands slice crusty loaves of bread and never give hunger a second chance. Thank you. Ancient radio. It isn't easy to count the ocean waves, smiling in the bleachers like drunkards with dark matter in their pockets, who watch galactic radio waves wash over trains and cars. Ocean waves are complicated. Seagulls overhead remind us that the water is angry. Frightened little girls play on the beach. How can they be so young if they've always been there? One little girl wipes off thoughts of her mother with a towel she soaked in sweat. The waves climb a ladder up the cliff. The wind blows the ladder down with a condescending gust. The waves pile up on some of the girls. the ancient radio waves travel farther. They reach a planet cold and simple and peaceful. They keep going. Thank you.
All right.
Frightened butterflies, and the epigraph is, and America sinks into machines and tears. And that's Garcia Lorca, poet in New York. At least one translation of it. Monstrous numbers on the fuselage reveal me crawling under the lake with heavy moons. I'm going to love you and drag death down the street to recycle its bloody wishes. Poor man, prepare a fire and gouge out the eye of the cinder before the electric shocks begin. Before I fly the drone somewhere, men are screaming, drowning out the mystic drowning in tea. The leaves, all folded in sunshine, have eaten no snow for 3 years, 4 months, and 2 days. I wander in your pocket filled with paint, movies, and music, and pour the windswept, dancing dust of Sicily over your breath. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And the last one is one of my favorites. It's called I Once Jumped. It's a true story. I once jumped out of an airplane, and my former office mate still can't believe I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane. I once jumped out of an airplane. Yeah, I was with others who all thought the air would save us, even though it had no eyes and hands to hold us tight and close, loving each of us who dared to trust the ropes and cloth that could have been laundered and folded neatly by some woman who never watched television or ate pizza. I asked many times, but no one told me about the little dog inside me who fell out the window. We barked and howled, but not all the way down. There was no siren, no alarm bell, only the grassy hills and an arrow on the ground pointing at something. I don't remember anymore at what, just like the professor down in front trying to explain something. I was wearing a white jumpsuit, and I made sure to use the outhouse often enough so that the jumpsuit wouldn't change colors at the sudden mad moment when I let go of the strut and saw the wing get smaller and smaller. The wind nearly blew off my glasses. I now know why paratroopers in the movies yell, "Geronimo!" when they jump, so no one hears the little dogs bark. I think I saw a white flower when I got done with falling. I looked around to make sure I wasn't on fire. Later, I heard tall grasses tell their adventure stories. It was so long ago, the trees don't remember how many times I looked carefully at the dirt when I practiced dying. Thank you.
Good job, sir. And now give my co-host a round of applause, Mr. Buford Bunton. Then we got Tommy, Owen, Sharon, Daniel, Brady, whoever the heck that is, Yasmin, who follows me.
So soon.
You follow me.
I'm a little taller
Great.
than that, huh?
I'll tell you about that in a while. And then we have Alan coming up, and I will
Yeah.
properly address that situation as the time.
First one is called Long Floppy Ears. Long floppy ears, hearing everything, fur for days, curly. Dogs are affectionate creatures. Cats don't care. People love and sometimes just lust. Platonic feelings go far in friendship at certain times. Long floppy ears, look up with wanton eyes, decide. All right. It's called affectionate feelings. Affectionate feelings care for one's tone. Touching slow, obvious. The heart beating with rapid succession. People who care, love, enable one another to come in close. Touch my shoulder, kiss me lightly, or with incredible passion. Roll over in my bed, squeeze my life underneath your soft fingers. And for a big change, this is called baseball season. Because it's the second big obsession I have.
What's the first?
You just heard the first two. That's my first obsession. This is my second. Not too far behind. Baseball season a mile away. Actually, almost 4 months. When it's here, I'll stand for free with other rabid fans, with other not hooligans. The Giants, once 3-year world champions in only 5 years, have fallen by the wayside and become low-level non-contenders. Bruce Bochy, their manager, stressing out his already precarious heart condition, I'm sure. Would like to have them come back up before he hangs up his manager cleats. We in the knothole would obviously enjoy our hearts quickening again with each victory. All right, who's next? It's Tommy Abacola-Mecca.
He comes back, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Give him a round of applause. The keynote always comes back to deliver their own perceptions of the reality.
Listen to the music. They were told to listen to music. What music do you play to drown out the sound of the saws they used to dismember him? Dismember a journalist. Dismember the press. I can't breathe were his last words. The Washington Post writer who spoke out against his native country's repression. And what of the U.S. president? What music did he play as he discarded the CIA report? Tweeted that he didn't believe the Arab prince gave the order to kill the journalist. Spoke of the importance of American arms sales to Saudi Arabia. A president who has music powerful enough to drown out the sound of saws and kids in Yemen moaning in starvation. Music that sounds like the clinking of coins. Wonder what 30 pieces of silver would be worth today.
Yeah, all right.
That's obviously for, So next week is my mother's birthday.
Happy birthday.
But she's been gone since 1990. If she were alive, she would be turning 108. And every year, of course, I think about her. So I have a poem that I want to read about her that's called Fiori per i morti, which in Italian means flowers for the dead. And there's 2 Italian words I used in it, but if you know Italian, you won't know these words because they're Southern Italian dialect. And one is guaglione, which is ragazzo, which is a young man, but guaglione is more in the sense of young guys that you hang with. It's kind of like your best buddies, your homeboys.
Yeah, okay.
And then the other word is agita, which is the kind of stress, the kind of tension, the kind of aggravation that makes you feel like you have a whole army running around in your stomach, and that all you want to do is explode. So anyway, with those in mind, Mama, the neighborhood guaglioni made their daily pilgrimage to Woolworth's candy counter where you worked. Their flirtations were novenas, their words hymns. Mama, you always said you could have had any man. You chose the one who made you laugh. One day, you realized you had lost your sense of humor. Mama, you tucked my infant body under your warm coat as you raced out of our burning house in the dead of winter, cursing God, something you would do for the rest of your life. Mama, you pulled me out from under the fallen marble mantle I climbed on, pounding on my chest to force breath back into my lungs, pulling me from a place I wanted to stay. Mama, you worried silently for years after a 5th grade nun told you I was a good student, but I acted too much like a girl. You couldn't convince yourself she was crazy. Mama, you tried so hard to understand the acoustic guitar, the long hair, the poetry published in the neighborhood weekly you knew concealed a terrible secret. Mama, you trembled visibly at your ironing board as I told you I was queer. Something you already knew, but didn't want to hear me say aloud. Mama, you brought food and presents and kind words to me at work after Papa wouldn't let his queer son set foot in his house anymore. Mama, your prodigal son was finally allowed to come home that Christmas Day, just months before Papa died, and a year before you did. Mama, you of the morning panic attacks, the premonitions, the constant agita that sat in your stomach like rocks. You lived with so many regrets. I hope I wasn't one of them.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's time to have a call, Mecca. Lauren Gunther. And then after Owen is Sharon, then me, then Yasmin, and then our feature, just so you know. Alrighty, daddy.
This one is a prose piece that Buford liked, so I'll read it. James Liddy, a memoir. James Liddy was a creative writing instructor I took 2 classes from at San Francisco State way back in '68. He was a native of Ireland, County Roscommon, a poet and a barrister. He held classes in a small cottage on Waller Street in The Haight. He liked my work and we became friends. He was honest in his criticism of my poetry. Oh no, Wally, they're on an ego trip. He would say of some rivals. Stan Rice, the late Stan Rice was one of his rivals. I was a pale goblet stove. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stem
Stem of a boy.
Right?
We know that one.
All right. I was a pale goblet stem of a boy. A pale goblet stem of a boy indeed. Decadent rubbish, Wally. He was honest with me concerning my poetry. That was bad, Wally, he said, one of my poems that tried to be mystical in an Eliot-esque way, but ended up being vague and semi-nonsensical.
Indeed.
14 lines on a theme by Jack Spicer. A day's like all days, the shoddy sun, the concealed moon, maybe it will shine tonight. The poem appears behind a bush.
The poem has all the joy of a wild rabbit. Elmer Fudd suppressed the metaphor. Every metaphor before it appears on the page, before it climbs between your legs. Someday a metaphor will be beneath the sea, hiding from where you cannot find it, no matter how hard you look. I'm an Aussie, a mad Aussie, chasing after what he thinks he wants, chasing and cooking and eating every metaphor he finds on the planet. No, the planet is not the spice box of Earth. It is Elmer Fudd's garden. Jack's eyes. In the Northeast Library, there's a large picture of Jack Kerouac typing on a teletype roll. His eyes not tired but expressionless. Of course, a Pisces is different. And go out and type again anytime, any place, anywhere. Yes, type all of On the Road. His eyes were like this poem. They have everything and nothing to say. The eyes of Tuesday. Willed the wailing welder, wonderful, the first hot day San Francisco has had in months. Alas, my imagination has fled. There are people on the bus, but not of the bus. The doors open, the doors close. The clipper keeps and beeps. Maybe the bus was a flying cloud full of Swedish sailors and mermaids wrapped around the mast this day. My imagination becalmed in the doldrums of inner space.
There we go, Mr. Owen.
Okay, thank you very much.
The marvelous and magical Sharon Scott Kish, taking us to all those places we have never been before. Sorry. Okay, there we go.
You got all your papers?
Yes.
There we go.
Oh, God. Kansas City.
I want to move this a little forward so we can get a better picture. There we go.
All right.
There we go.
This is called Over the Rail. Butch was Aunt Nola and Uncle Neil's border collie. She was my grandmother's first cousin. Talented woman, taught piano. She left Oskaloosa, Kansas, and went to Juilliard Music School, and left the States to go to Paris for a while. Really funny woman. Uncle Neil ran a jackhammer on a construction site for more than 30 years. Stone deaf. He loved jigsaw puzzles, pretty easy when you can't hear. As was the custom, they had a bread man deliver the bread. Men delivered milk, bread, ice, coal, all of these deliveries. These men knew everyone and their ailments in the neighborhood. Gossip, deliveries made on the same days as scheduled. No variations. We lived 3 blocks away, but we did not have the same bread man. Ronald, Aunt Nola's bread man, a smart aleck, a big jokester, not really appreciated. Of course, all of his wisecracks were lost on Uncle Neil, since he could barely hear. Aunt Nola heard them, and they still weren't funny. To her, Bob had been her previous delivery man. She loved him. She called to see if he could be her bread man again. No, split. So she stuck with Ronald. Aunt Nola and Uncle Neil lived in this great big Victorian house in the attic, which had been converted into this huge apartment. When I would stay with them, Butch would herd me down the hallway into the bedroom to take a nap. Ronald was always thought it was funny to jiggle the door and make cat noises. Butch did not think it was funny. Aunt Nola warned him many times to stop. She told him to tap on the door, announce himself from the outside, and she would lock Butch and put him away. That would be fine. She would tell him, always, always Wait till she said it was okay for him to come to place her order. A few times he opened the door to slam it fast because Butch was on his way down. We never had a problem since Butch knew our scent and our voices. On trips to Oskaloosa, Kansas, Butch would accompany us. He loved the farm. Aunt Nola's sister and her husband had a huge farm. He had a good friendship, this is Butch, with all the animals. In fact, there's a picture taken from the rear of Uncle Buster, Butch, a goose, and a pig going for a walk. Three of the smartest animals, no problem. I would always walk with Uncle Neil to the Cat's drugstore to get ice cream when he and Butch went out for a walk, especially their evening walk. And Butch loved it because he knew he would get some ice cream. He also loved popcorn. Even our dog Mimi, a little Pekingese, liked him. Even my grandmother and Nola loved each other, and they always spent time together. Frequently, the news from up home is what they called Oskaloosa, plus all the neighborhood goings-on. They would share food recipes. Aunt Nola was also the keeper of all the home remedies: goose grease for chest colds, tinctures and balms she made, red onion cough syrup. She had it all. All. She knew it, and she played for us. Blues, honky-tonk tunes, telling stories of musicians, the blues, jazz, places that she went to in Europe, her travels, famous people she met and worked with. One late morning, we got a call. It's Aunt Nola. Come over as soon as you can. What's up? Well, it's snowing outside. We put on our boots. I put on my snowsuit and gloves, and we trudge over and up the stairs, in the yard, up the steps, up to the second floor, tap on the door. Call to her. Come in, she says. We open the door. Now, mind you, this woman is immaculate. The house is beautiful wallpaper, great carpeting, the works. We open the door. Crumbs, icing, raisins, cherries, blueberries, nuts, all over the wallpaper. Bread crusts on the stairs, crushed muffins and pies, turnovers smashed into the carpet. Ronald banged on the door. Aunt Nola was on the phone. Ronald opened the door, and Butch jumped over the railing, and everything goes flying. Now Ronald is on the stairs, shit is everywhere, and Butch is giving him a working over. Aunt Nola locks Butch up, gets him in the bathroom, gives Ronald a piece of her mind, and when we get there, she has Butch in the bath. Suds is everywhere. We busy ourselves scraping cherries, crumbs, crusts. Aunt Nola calls the bakery. They agree to pay her for a new wallpaper. After we did as much cleaning as we could, I had cocoa, they had tea. And we were laughing so hard that we had tears rolling down our face. And Aunt Nola's comment was, "What a crummy day."
Thank you. That's always a hard act to follow. Do you want to make sure I'm focused in there, Mr.?
Oh, you
Well, it's good to be here. It's always good to be here compared to the alternative.
How does it go like
Oh,
this?
yeah, just go.
There you go.
I'm good.
No, it's not enough.
Oh, just, yeah, go.
So I always like giving people a chance so I don't have to bear the
There you go.
responsibility of what I read, A or B.
Hey.
Okay, so the A first. Oh, we're gonna do A. All right.
A prime.
Thank you.
All right, so this is a very short poem, and then a not so short poem, but I should be able to get it done within the squeeze limit here. This poem is called Forgetful. I do well to forget. I am a champ at it. It does well by me, too. We work it, forgetfulness and I. We are a team. If only I could remember why. All right, and this piece was written in response to the following posting on the web by you'll see. Any person born with 2 legs, 2 arms, and a brain has no excuse to be homeless. Or maybe they should have studied math and engineering instead of poetry. Signed, Mr. Leonhard Euler West Bernal of San Francisco, clearly a cowardly nom de plume. Well, so I wrote back, and not to him, just post. Mr. Euler, you do not understand the facts of homelessness, do you? 90% of them were once full-time workers before a layoff, a death in the family, chronic illness, or some other unexpected, overwhelming circumstance, maybe a sudden expense of just $400, thus pulling the proverbial rug right out from under, landing them on the cold streets. Then once homeless, it becomes monumentally difficult to get hired because you look disheveled, because you can't keep sets of clothes, because you look worn out, because you must carry everything you own with you all the time, because you don't look clean and neat, because you don't have running water, because contacting you is hard, because you can't get mail, because you don't have an address, because you can't make or take calls, because you have no phone, because you have no access to the web, because you can't get to any appointments, because you have to work everywhere, because you're tired, because you do not have a place to sleep, because you can't get food or water easily, because you have no money, because you are prone to criminal assault, because you have no place to be safe, because everyone ignores you, because you don't exist, because you are a blight, because people like you, Mr. Euler, say things just as you did, which dismiss, demean, and disdain, and you hurt, make matters worse. And in so doing, show those who suffer homelessness they are misunderstood, looked down upon, distrusted, dismissed, and a problem that just needs to be swept off the streets to someplace else, any place else. NIMBY personified, is that it? And so your comment, Mr. Euler, also shows you for what you are not. Compassionate, kindly, caring, considerate, loving, willing to share, willing to give, but unwilling to do anything save grump along by your old useless, lonesome, selfish self with whatever you hold dear clutched close to your heartless breast. One wonders, Mr. Euler, if you know what love is, what its blessings are meant for, which is to say sharing, what hands are meant for, which is to say reaching out and helping up, what a mouth is for, which is to say for speaking kindly and helpfully with compassion and caring, and for expressing the love that most religions describe as an essential part of being human. Perhaps, Mr. Euler, it is time to put your index finger to your wrist and find your pulse. You may be surprised to feel that you have one.
Thank you. Thank you. Yasmin, and then our feature, so give her a nice round as she comes up here. We'll get everything all set up. Thank you for that. I'm glad I finally had a chance to read them. Someone said, hey,
nice.
good.
Go get it. Go ahead. Go, Yasmin.
Just like, give these people are people. People. All right. And then,
Okay, I've read this. Is it working? I don't
oh
think
yeah.
so.
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on. The plug is out. Let me get that.
You put the plug.
Well, it can happen. Wait a minute. Let me make sure. See if the blue light is on.
Yeah.
Yeah, der blaue Licht.
It's working. I've read this here before, but I'm gonna read it again because of the caravan and the situation with the immigrants and stuff like that. So Omri, the protagonist in the novel, is applying for a job, and this was written about the World Trade Center way before whatever happened. So she's on her way to the World Trade Center. Omri took her time walking downstairs instead of taking the elevator. 527 steps. Omri reminded herself that she must persist. As if she were a ventriloquist, she gave voices to the petrified steps. She considered each argument in turn. This is New York, baby, the 13th floor said. There are another dozen who come here each day, overqualified, overeducated, and with no contract. No leads. Ain't no use playing crap with loaded dice. Chicken shit, the 12th floor replied. Last three years you've settled for mediocre jobs, grabbed anything you got. Be ambitious. Get out of education what you put into it. Sure, the 11th floor said, impertinent, rapping, tapping. Calculate $1,000 a semester over 2 years, plus what you missed out on the earnings, opportunity, cost, and all that. Told you to get out there and get a skill. School of soft nudges, where you can get paid to get an education, instead of paying for graduate castration. Change your sales pitch. Take a job you're used to. Start small. Look, there are all kinds of retail stores sprouting across the country. Foxmore casuals, jeans and things, they are the tomorrow. You're a good saleswoman. Start as an assistant manager. Get a promotion. Get ahead. The next floor down, abrupt, economical with words. Supply and demand, babe. There's demand for you. Women's movement and all that. Don't shortchange yourself. That doesn't apply to colored women, the 9th floor retorted, swift, incisive. That's how come she ain't hired yet. That's right, she's colored and she's a woman. Double minority. 2 pluses she can claim. Only for citizens she can. Smart, that 6th floor. Out of turn, the 4th, rushing ahead of himself. She can fake it. Who's to know she ain't a citizen? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Yasmin. And I want to thank everybody who's already been on the mic, because I appreciate
all the voices we heard. We have many more voices. We have Alan Byrne coming up here in just a moment. I'm going to do a couple of little notes to prepare you. Actually, I can't prepare you. This is because he's a poet. I have no idea what this person is going to do, and maybe he doesn't either, but you. It's a great voice. It's a good voice. It's a solid voice. It's a voice of maturity and age. Age in the sense of, like well-aged things. You know what I mean? Ripe, good, solid, caring. Just a couple of notes here. He did send me a few things here. It says here, he's just returned from Napoli. Napoli. This is a side note here. My mom used to say, Vanopoli, when she was really mad at you, and it translates, go to Naples. Because there's another saying, you should see Naples before you die, which is another way of saying drop dead. She told me he's been. Anyway, but he's been to Napoli, and he was honored to read his poetry there with Italian translations, and at the National Library of Italy in Napoli, so this was a very prestigious event. Robert Woods has worked with him, and they produced a set of broadsides called Lines and Faces. So there's variety in the ways he presents his works. And the printer got cut off. I don't have the first name of the woman weaver. What was the first name?
Lucinda.
Okay. And so while over there, he performed divining triptychs with dancer Lucinda Weaver in the deconsecrated church, now I'm getting my Italian on here, of San Giuseppe della Scalza e Pontecorvo. Is that close?
Yeah.
Okay. He says yeah, which means maybe not. So he has a wide range of interests and approaches, multi-talented, and we're going to have him come up here right now. Give him a wonderful round of applause. Alan Byrne, ladies and gentlemen. And he has books. I'll tell you about those books.
There you go, David. Sorry I'm in your way. All right, and we frame him up and just bring a little closer to me. That so I can. All right, so now just get really close.
Is that close enough?
That's good because we have a head and shoulders shot. Just that angle is perfect.
Don't move.
Yeah.
That's impossible.
Wait a minute. The plug came out.
That's why it didn't sound like it was
That
resonating.
it didn't sound like it was resonating.
Yeah.
That's because it wasn't.
Now it's resonating.
There we
better.
go.
Yeah.
All right.
So as introduced, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank
Dan.
you.
My name is Alan Byrne, and I'm actually from far, far away, Berkeley, California.
Oh!
I was born in Berkeley, California.
Oh, a native Berkeleyite. Do they call them Berkeleyites?
Village idiots.
Oh.
That's a private joke, right? So let's start at the very beginning with me and my mother. I lay in your arms in a car on a boat carrying trains. Although I could not stand, I could lift myself up from your arms and through the windows see the round lights enlarging. You sit in your chair 61 years later, tired every day. I lean down to hold your arms. We look out your windows, moon shadows on the lawns. Well, Mom is not with us anymore, and her birthday was December 7th. So she got to listen to the radio in 1941 when the bombing happened. And here's an amazing fact. Her sister's birthday was 9/11. Oh no. So this poem, going back to this poem, is my earliest memory, or is it a dream? Perhaps I'm in Europe with my parents on my father's first sabbatical. He taught at the University of California for about 60 years. Am I on a ferry traveling from England to France under the age of 2? I don't know if this is true or a dream. Here's a fact. I was born a block and a half from where I live now in Berkeley. I calculated recently that I have lived 95% of my life inside of a 4 square block area.
Wow.
Wow, it's right. And though this is Berkeley, which is a sort of international and diverse town in some ways, I grew up most when I left Berkeley. So sabbaticals are a tremendous gift to families as well as the person who does them. The professor gets to go and do research or sit in a cafe and drink drinks, which my father did not do. He did both. So the second one, we went to Hawaii, and I got to go to school with no shoes on. That was totally cool. Then when I was 16, I lived in Napoli with my family, and it affected me as much as anything in my life. I discovered that Berkeley is not Napoli. In fact, San Francisco is not Napoli. There is nothing like Napoli in this country, with the exception, perhaps, of New York. And I'm just talking about vibrational energy. So what did I do there? I went to high school because I was a high school student. And I studied Italian really fast, which is not that easy to do. So I could go to high school because I went to an Italian high school. And I just had more fun. I guess there's various reactions teenagers can have to things, like one of them is no. Another one would be, wow, this is amazing, because Naples is amazing. And I even liked walking around and looking at the huge piles of garbage because they weren't getting picked up, and seeing the rats go in and out. That's actually not that great of a thing, but that's how attached I was to this place. So learning Italian, I continued to study Italian, and I'm going to read you a couple of poems that I wrote because I lived in Naples. One of them, the first one, is as if I were an Italian American. I am not an Italian American at all, but this is what it might be like. It's called Olivo a Olio, which means olive oil. When I heat garlic in green olive oil, the noses of the children and my wife turn younger toward the steaming smell and follow it until they warm themselves against the heat, curling like dogs. They find an old, sharp knife propped against an uncut bunch of heads and ask why I have used but a bit of it, when I could have minced it all and fried it. Like silk lingerie, the skin, oil moistened by hot splatter, slicks off into my hands. In a snap, they are even younger, whining as the neighbors open out their windows and call to us, "What is that noise, that smell?" Now the whole neighborhood is awake and hungry. Everyone is yelling and asking me, "When will the dish be cooked? When can we eat?" How can I estimate that just amount to make for a ravenous block whose city street runs flying without perspective into a rural distance? And amazingly, I did really not expect this. I didn't expect my predecessor to use the word guaglione, which is a Neapolitan term for boys that you hang out with. It actually means quail. So it's like the girls are quails and the boys are quails, male and female. And then Vedi Napoli e poi mori. So I wrote this poem called See Naples and Die, which is Vedi Napoli e poi mori, and I sent it to my friend Marco, who translates some of my poems in Naples, and he said, "I don't like that poem." And I said, "Okay," it has a lot of Neapolitan, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time translating because it's too obscene. And then a couple years passed, and he wrote me an email and said, "Do you have any poems that are about Naples? Because they're putting together this issue of a magazine, and they want an American to send a poem, and I'll translate it, and it'll be great." So I sent him the same poem, and of course he'd completely forgotten that he didn't like the one. I said, "This is a really good poem." So we got to read this poem in the National Library of Italy in Naples, which is really kind of like getting a little edgy for that environment, because it's kind of like reading at the Library of Congress or something. It's not quite that elevated, but it's like everybody's more formal there. It's a formal place.
There's some respect.
Respect. So, See Naples and Die. Vedi Napoli e poi mori. Marco, more pie, more pizza pie. Stai inguaiato. The oven's not even hot. Wait, blessed mother, he's a know-nothing, but is he okay? Well, he does have idioms, and when the GI asks him how he's doing, he comes back with Tengo wawada, thank you. 2 long wallets ready to rupture. Sfacim, he says he has sperm in his hand towel and doesn't know whether to put it. What a fucking bother. But in this mess of traffic here and there, cars on every sidewalk, he is a sprinting quail, as the good Napolitani say. Eno bravo guaglione. A directed messenger carrying fresh fish fillets wrapped tightly in yesterday's news and running like a damn madman for his precious life. So those poems are in this book. Which has an odd title for poems about Naples and other things. It says Water Walking in Berkeley. So there's a lot of poems about Berkeley. And then there's some other poems about Italy and even some other places. So I'm actually like pausing my reading for a second because in order to get to the next section, I want to read a poem by somebody else. The name is Akua Leslie Hope, who wrote a poem about Jamal Khashoggi, who we are thinking about tonight for so many different reasons. And you'll see my like personal reason in a minute. And this is written as if she were his beloved. That's why it sounds like it sounds. They used our marriage needs to lure you, my beloved, to the Saudi embassy in Turkey, my beloved. Outside day cooled tonight's concern, my beloved. Waiting long hours for your return, my beloved. I hear again the call to prayer, my beloved, and wonder why you are not near, my beloved. It seems your life has been undone, dear beloved, hacked by 14, led by 1, my beloved. 15 murderers arrived, sweet beloved. In state-sanctioned secrecy they hide, my beloved. What can we do but weep and moan, my beloved, knowing now you're truly gone, my beloved? Your critiques considered measured, mild, my beloved. I weep for our unbegotten child, my beloved, and many days of unspent joy, my beloved. All the words left unemployed, my beloved. Words of hope that you might say, my beloved. All the ways you worked for change, my beloved. So that's a powerful poem.
And he was going to get his marriage license.
He was.
To get his marriage
Yes, so
license.
this whole thing is, I mean, this is not written by...
Benito Vito Mussolini.
Benito, Benito, Benito,
Benito.
Benito, yes, we need no more Benitos, thank you. So just to get back to her, she has a book coming out. It's out already called Them Gone in 2018. She's also an artist who creates sculpture and crochet and all kinds of other things. So she's kind of multifaceted. So reading that takes me to a slightly different mood, and I want to talk about somebody who's important to me as a nice Jewish fellow from Berkeley. And I think important for like where we are right now, and his name is San Francesco d'Assisi. So that's St. Francis of Assisi. So these are several poems about him, or to him. Hymn to San Francesco, who honored morning, even the darkest hour of the wolf. Now I hear his birds begin, and their songs mean light comes. Here, I stretch over my scapula across the bed and drive back down to the dream I had in sleep. This is another short poem about the story of the wolf of Gubbio, which I won't retell, but the wolf was not doing well, very hungry, and was eating a lot of the people in Gubbio. And so St. Francis went over from Assisi and met the wolf and told him to stop doing that.
Oh, wow.
The wolf of Gubbio. Francesco holding the paw of the great wolf of Gubbio, his nails sunk deep into your palm. This trust attracted you to pain and the joy within it. How am I doing with time?
You
Did a time
have
checking.
like 8 minutes-ish. You're good.
That I have left or that I've done?
that
That
I've
I've
left,
left.
yeah, sorry.
So thank you. So just a comment on St. Francis. Being in Italy got me to read some of his writings. He wrote a lot of things, and some of them were early Italian poems that's not in Latin and not in dialect, but in an Italian kind of Northern Italy. And one of the poems that I wrote more recently actually won a prize. And I want you to keep that in your mind, and because it will come up again at the end of the reading. And it's written about the stages of his life as Giotto painted them in the Upper Basilica in Assisi. So you can go online and look at these. They are amazing paintings, one after another of his life, or his life as understood by somebody a couple hundred years later. From several stations in the Legenda di San Francesco d'Assisi by Giotto di Mondone. The sky hand of God, two-fingered sign to the raised prayer hands of Francis. Shall never forget that moment and the poor man saw my cape over the ground for him too. I cannot believe that I exist without flames running down my back. Unless timepieces crack, the human father dies first, leaving the child alone on a short porch looking out over a rich, deep valley. Though Francesco points over his angry father's head, Assisi now recalls the saint's parents in cold bronze, broken chain in mother's hands. Green bird, Francesco, fly up to your perch in air, uncaged throne of wood. This is what scared me most, the disappearance of my heart, and that no one knew the difference. So I'm going to jump forward to my trip, because some of you may have heard some of these poems before, but you haven't heard this one because I just wrote it. Not like in the last 10 minutes, but recently. So in Naples, after the performance and after doing this reading, which completely connected me with this city again, this is a unique city in that it's an ancient city. The other ancient cities that you think of don't exist anymore. Ancient means there are levels below Phoenician, Greek, Roman, bourbon, and then you're on top of all this. You can actually go down inside of that and look at some of it. And it's just, you can feel the historical vibes of the place, not to mention the absolute and utter chaos of being in Naples all at the same time. So it's kind of a great place to visit. I'm not sure I actually want to live there. But this painting, and I have copies that I can either pass around or you can come and look at them, is in a place called Piemonte della Misericordia, which, a good clap for that, is a non-profit organization started in the year 1600 by 7 young noblemen who went into a cave on the Bay of Naples and were almost swept by a storm into the bay. But they weren't, and they survived. Now this sounds like a legend already, doesn't it? Anyway, but it's supposed to be a true story. So they decided they would start this organization to help the poor. This is something that you're supposed to do if you're a Catholic. I'm not a Catholic. I don't know this like in my guts. I just read about it. You're supposed to do that. Did the Catholic Church do that all the time? Not really. Not as much as they should have. These guys said, we're going to do this. Did they sound like they were part of a church organization? Yes, they did. Were they? No, they weren't. And this organization still exists, and it has a building. In that building, my friend and translator Marco has his offices. He's called the Professor of the Streets, and he brings in youth from all these poor areas, and he helps them to avoid dying, becoming drug addicts, selling drugs, etc., as he can. The painting comes in because Caravaggio was in Rome, and he murdered a guy. Caravaggio was a crazy guy. And the papal police were running after him to kill him, because that's what you do when you get mad at somebody for killing somebody. He escaped to Naples and hid in Naples. He ran into these guys, these 7 guys, and they said, you need to paint us a painting with all the acts of mercy for the poor. 6 of them, and they listed them off. Well, he did paint this painting, and he painted 7 acts of mercy. And when I saw this painting, I went, oh my God, it's got everything in it. It's got all of these things going on, all the acts of mercy. And I started to look at the people, and the people were not from a Catholic painting. They were from the streets of Naples. All of the characters in there were from the streets of Naples. And so I sat at Mass, like a good Catholic, I'm not a Catholic, and listened to the priest, and then to get that experience, and then looked at the painting some more, and then I wrote this poem. After Mass, Caravaggio's The 7 Works of Mercy. American pennies here and there in sidewalk puddles, in front of the Duomo, La Cattedrale di San Gennaro, a black man and a small pale woman at far gray columns, both wrapped in rags, hold knees close. Around the corner, understanding only some of the words of the Mass at Piemonte della Misericordia, seats between the few. Hearing the young priest speaking in crisp words, a Beatrice enters at the last prayer, standing, her head hung, all of us under Caravaggio's grand Le Opere di Misericordia. From dark deepnesses, faces, hands, a single breast feeds a very old man, head over a prison stone, not a here and there, swirling, suffering, ascends through an angel's wing, descends through a nobleman, about to clothe the naked, bright white back of he whose left hand holds this whole world from tile up and out into the richest darkness imaginable. Seen also in day, as in the late night, the most poor shaking alone in front of the cathedral, closing for the day, into moonless night quiet, cold, growing always colder. Coda. Yes, there is a true cross structuring the work, with lower figures leaning away from the dark central vertical, the horizontal at an angle curving off, gray Neapolitan drapes in the upper left, or perhaps laundry, On one side, on the other, the dark space between one angel's gray wings. Ah, the same gray shade. This angel holding embraces a warm darkness. So I urge you to look at the painting. I put the pictures, but look at it, read about it. It revolutionized painting at the moment. Structurally, chiaroscuro was this method of making great darkness and bringing light out of it, and he was the master of chiaroscuro. Am I done with my time?
Yeah, why don't you give us a nice little dessert?
A little dessert thing. Perfect. I'm going to do the dessert because then I have a surprise for everybody.
All right.
So we're back in America. Here we are. Totally changing everything. This poem is called Key System. Everybody know what Key System is?
Yeah.
The trains that used to run East Bay to San Francisco. Before I knew that Grandpa Sam had come from Prussia, he visited us in Berkeley with Grandma Ethel, who came from a Russian town whose name made her laugh out loud when I showed her a map from my homework in geography years later. Her town on a map. Sam was a silent man, even more to his wife, laughed only when he watched Friday night wrestling on TV, his only visible pleasure besides his work. He owned a thriving braid business, and when his workers struck his factory, he joined the picket line and brought them snacks and a hot tea. He was so upset by the strike that he almost wept and settled as quickly as he could manage. Sam introduced me to his foreman and his workers and showed me how the amazing machines ran, and he assumed that I would join the business, unlike my mother and her sister. Sam's son, Willie, was set to take over, but no other relative had stepped in beside him, and Sam worried. I love these grandparents, especially Grandpa Sam. On this visit, Sam took me on a Key System train on the Bay Bridge lower deck to San Francisco. I recall boarding the train and sitting with him, but not the arrival in San Francisco. It may have been my first trip across the bay, and I'm certain Sam would have brought out his small Swiss scissors to snip a thread. I craved those scissors, and years later he gave them to me. They are still sharp and shaped snub-nosed, much like his wide, strong fingers. Sam only arrived, in part, in his new land. Some of Sam's workers, like many of those who built our Bay Bridge, never wholly arrived here either. On my trip across the Bay Bridge, I arrived, but I do not remember it. Perhaps children are always immigrants like Sam and Ethel, except, unlike both of them, children may more easily recognize their way before they die.
Helen Byrne.
So now, surprise time. Anybody have a birthday today?
Oh.
Anybody have a birthday this week?
No.
This month?
Anybody have a birthday this month?
Yeah.
He's close.
Close. Anybody closer than the end of November? No?
I
All right, we got two guys.
End of
So
December.
you were first. Do you want a broadside of the poem I just read or the St. Francis poem where I'm talking about Giotto? There's two different broadsides.
The one you just read.
Okay.
And then,
You get the other one.
And you actually could have the same one also. I actually have more than one.
Okay,
Or you can have the other one.
good. Whatever you want to give away, that's great. I'm happy to take
You're
it.
happy to have one.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else who has a birthday who's hankering for a St. Francis?
there's someone back there. Is that you, Mr. Sanderell?
No, it's me.
It's Hal? Hal, you gotta speak up back there.
So Hal, do you like medieval poems about St. Francis?
Yes, I do.
Well, then we've got a broadside for you. I thank you all. Come and look at my books. They're for sale. And there's a free handout here.
Tell us about the prize you won. You're going to tell us about the prize. You said you would tell us later.
Oh yes, I'm going to show you right now. I wrote the poem, I submitted the poem, and my prize was a broadside, which is what my friend Robert and I print of the poem. And I thought,
very nice.
that's a great present for a prize for somebody who does that. kind of work.
Beautiful work. Give her another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a quick break. Although this camera will be on, it'll be facing the wall, so we won't be recording you. And Al, I got a couple of things, just, you don't have to do them right away. But you read a poem by somebody else, like the name of the poem of the person. You talk about the painting's location, of just the name of the place and the name of the painting. The paint, the Caravaggio thing, yeah. So, whatever you can, talk to the people first, but I want to get that, so I write it up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got a second half, including we got Wendy, Nurderman, Sandra L, Garrett Murphy, Hal, Bill, Antoinette, David E, Paul H, Wendy, and Isabel. Is that right? Isabel? Did I say it right? Okay. And then Sandra, because I didn't see the handwriting. Let's make sure I got it. So we got a bunch of people coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be afraid. Don't do this at home.
Every feast to me is just eating.
I know, it's
My family's not from Boston. Hi, Sharon. My mother's family's from the Alamo and Boston and Got. They always say Boston Got. All the seasons. But I learned Wyoming because we had a lot of people from Naples. In our neighborhood, I grew up in South Philly, China, immigrant neighborhood, and there were people from all these different regions, and everybody spoke dialect. So I learned Basilica. My mother called it Basilica. But Wyoming is
So I must be doing something wrong, because you gave me everything, but
they also said they're outside. Right. So they use both. I think Wyoming was my brother had his Wyoming. Very, very special. And that he know the words. That was actually yeah, but you know,
visiting all the things
I mean, there's still that northern league that talks about everything south of San Jose.
That's what I was that because somehow I'm now on that.
So I recently,
My mother's making this message.
people submitted. That was our agreement, like I just said.
Okay.
It was confirmed, but now that you understand that you have to like gmail.com is login word.
And that's what they have to
So I must be doing something.
my wife is Jewish, she's famous Jewish name, so.
The Morisco.
Yeah, exactly.
My family.
Well, So today's the day.
I went to a Catholic school, which was 90% and they had a rule.
What I need to do is actually just go to Gmail. See, one of the links. Google, you go to Google and you get this dirty mail.
say that. That's what I said.
I was just making that up, but I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah, so I think, that's, you can get in, right? Oh, okay. Well, then we'll figure this out.
I just didn't, I just didn't understand exactly.
Oh.
Email address. Now I'm going to have
It was a Greek
Yeah, so remember, we got in and
I'm so glad you did that. We could, just do count at Chinese house.
All there, and they're all kind of banging around there.
And then
The
we can
funniest
divvy
thing in
up.
the neighborhood was
So
people
that you get
like
5,
each
you
other.
get 5, you get
It's
5, I
like-
get 5.
and they all had
And then we
stereotypes,
review
right?
to
So
make
you
sure
didn't
that
trust the
following
Sicilians.
specs.
Right.
And
They were mafia.
and then they'll start up.
Yeah, 'cause what I did today was
That's the dog.
phones that
That's
I
the dog.
talked about, and if someone had phones in
But
them,
yet
I
everybody
took the
was-
phones out
that's
and
the
put
dog.
them
Everybody.
the
Of course,
page,
and
just to
all
see what it
three
looked
groups had their own mafia
And,
types, so it's not like they did.
And you know, the mafia was the aggression.
like. Now, so,
That's the story.
if I can't get in, and
Yeah.
I still don't figure it out, just send me the phone. Well, I was thinking I'd put it all in a document and send everybody the document.
Mafia,
You can do the first part and second.
I haven't
Or
heard
then we
that
can
one.
see them all.
I've heard other.
That's the story that was popular.
Then
the mafia was me, Thea.
Yeah, that'd be great. Then have them all, everybody will have the whole set. And then we can figure out what we want to do from there, and, we have to get a cover art.
But I do believe that.
I was thinking, I have a graphic of the front of this that I use on Facebook, we could do that, but we could do something that's nice.
So just going back a little bit, because organizationally, it could go like super out of hand. And like, I just want to reiterate, it's gonna start like a not in contact person, like I'm not in charge.
It's just in my heart and I can't prove it.
Anything, and
But that was always the feeling I
like, you should be honest
from
with
family.
So,
No, the mafia was a good thing, but they got corrupted by they got corrupted by Spanish.
specifically outlined it, and you mentioned it before,
Blame it
you
on the
mentioned
Spanish.
before, like,
Who then
don't
bring it
send
on the
multiple emails,
French
it's
or
so
something.
crazy.
Everybody
All of us have a job, I have 2 jobs, I have school, I was in 6, like, and people are submitting from 3 separate emails, like 50 emails from YouTube, which is just too much, and like, I can't,
Yeah, I know.
you know what I mean, we can't expect one person to like,
Well,
all of that.
if we do this, then we'll say, all three
But you
phones,
take a card.
one email, you wanna buy it, you put it in, you don't put it out.
It's too late now, it's too late now.
I know, it's too late now, but the thing is,
I just,
If you like the poems I was reading, they're
if we
most.
only have bios,
This is a very.
is that about right, or should we just not have bios?
I feel like we shouldn't have bios because 3.
okay, then we have to tell everybody, and then get them to do all that.
Just scrape the bio idea.
Yeah, done, that's that, then we have cover with the graphic, nice set poems. And we don't need the forward and all, we don't need it, it's just simple.
As you said, they're all different results.
Let's say we
Whatever.
like you log in,
My father's family was from
we see how many times you say it will take, like from November, like submissions from November 17th.
It's not far from
Yes,
Bethany.
20th, for example.
Not far from the time my mother comes from, but
November
they
20th,
argued
I'm
all
just.
the time.
Yeah. Somehow dividing
My
So,
father spoke a different
so
language.
you are using this, what, like, how do we go on from there?
Well,
You guys are saying the same thing.
what I did tonight was
My father's
take
family
some
would
of the
never say
poems and
Guayo.
put them in a Word document, which is formatted
My
in
mother
page
says
size that
Guayo.
we're gonna be using. The only, it goes to, now it goes
And when they were
to,
mad at each other, it was really.
Kindle Direct Publishing, basically creates.
And I never learned.
So essentially, once we have a Word document
Of all the poems.
of all the poems in the way we want them, everything all looking the way we want it,
And I.
then and the cover, we have the cover as the PDF and the document.
Harder to kind of learn them because.
Okay, is that public?
fade.
That's mine.
Really, my
Oh, that is
generation
fine.
got really strong.
I think that should be the color.
There you go.
That's not.
Do we have any other colors on that? We don't have any other colors. And then, no, that's a great.
Yeah, no, that should be the
Which is
color.
really actually,
That's very good. That's very good. So what we'll do is size it so we have the title above or something. I don't want to put the title over. Of course, you could do that, but I don't. Yeah, we got-
Oh, yeah, like,
Yeah, it's
that was the
interesting
thing
because
that I was
we had it on the Jewish neighbors, it was very working class neighbors. So there was swaps all the time. Voted for it.
I'm not, this is not, like, we're not gonna make sure it fits, like, I wanted to see if I could make an announcement, just for free start, like, like the way you say pounds is the way that.
What is that? Is what is that?
Like,
Sticks.
that's it, you can just cut off wrong, they're gonna be cut off wrong,
Well,
so.
the thing is, I think it's it doesn't understand.
Try to make
The issue is that if someone says 3 pounds or too long, that you can't use it.
I'm not gonna get it. 10 pounds and make sure that they're 40
Well,
characters.
when I put them on the pages, I will find out. Oh, it's like the first 5 poets, you decide which of their poems, and then he takes it like
No,
that.
no, actually, no, that was not right.
And it's not that big a deal. I think they said 80%. It's the highest. And yes, you can understand if you got that is
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I thought we were doing.
Oh, I thought we were gonna like take 5 authors and then you pick the most.
like when I submitted, like,
Well, I mean, if someone has 3 poems, how do we decide?
I'm going to let you go.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna pick one, because I thought it was originally they sent 3, we picked 1 of 3.
Well, I like this idea, it doesn't feel that's an automatic discipline.
So the thing is, then we can pick whichever one we want. Now, the other
Okay,
thing
so I'm
is,
gonna really, announce that too. If you submitted more than 1,
No, except I didn't understand.
and then like, you know, our whole table of contents and a couple of front pages, and then something else. We'll certainly have the minimum number we're supposed to have. You always make, put a picture in.
The boyfriend was their roommate.
Once we have the poems, as we pick them, I can
Mama's voice,
format
everyone's
them
supposed
for
to
the
be
pages,
home
then
if
you
you
just
were
gotta.
to grow up. Right.
You're not doing anything anyway, so just,
I was supposed to be a mama.
Oh, someone had.
I was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
we can actually like.
We can do talk tonight too.
Title on the page, and then have one person call it.
So let me get this thing started. I'll get them started, then we'll give you a quick announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a quick announcement here. In case you did not know that we're coming up with a small collection of poetry that we're going to put together in print. And we have a couple announcements about that. We're going to start the show, the second show, in a moment. But we're going to have a little bit of an announcement first regarding this publication. So let me turn this around and we'll get organized with that.
All right, let me just move this around. Why?
Well, I know. It's like, why are you making an announcement here?
Okay, so. Announcement?
When no one's here. Anyway.
Okay, so let me just do this. And you're gonna read something tonight or something?
My phone is there.
Okay, let me just go like this. All right.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, a nice round of applause for Nicole. She's going to give us a quick announcement. Come on, warm it up there. Let's get going. We got the second half happening. Second show. Woo!
Hi everyone, good to see you again. And just quickly, if you submitted poems for the anthology, very excited to move forward with this. Just a few things. We have closed the date now, so no more poems can be submitted. So if you want to resubmit, the project goes on next year, you can do that. But for now, it's closed. We have about 20 to 25 poems so far. We are going to take a look at them and make sure that they follow the spec. Just to let you know that the way that they'll be filtered if you submitted more than one is that if more than one of your poems doesn't fall in the spec, that we can't print it because your words will be all funky. And then if all three poems fit the spec, then we just have to decide on one because we're running out of 25 pages. Anything else? We have one submission for the title from Rob. So many people that submitted are not here, so this feels kind of weird. And
well, they might see it on this.
Oh, okay. And then we have cover art, which the Honorable Antoinette has gratefully shared with us. So this is going to be our cover. If you want to have a look at the cover of the anthology. Very beautiful. Anything else?
If you have something tonight, it's not too late. You just, you can give it to me or us, like we can.
Yeah.
Take that because today is the deadline. So today.
Yeah. The other thing too is that if you are going to submit, I mean it's kind of too late now, but if you're going to submit anything or have any comments, please don't send separate emails. That inbox is completely inundated from one person. It's just like 25 different people sending 3 different messages you can imagine. And I was just working 2 jobs and going to night school and I got sick. So I was like, I'm just getting to it today. And I just see like, anyway, so let's just keep one email chain. And again, thank you so much for submitting. And I'm really excited about this. Yeah.
Can we just mention that if anybody wants to submit a title, a projected title, we'll accept that, and then we'll do a drawing on which one we'll take.
So as mentioned in the initial email, is that we are going to have a title of the anthology, or maybe not if we decide. We only have one title so far, so we're going to you're going to write down a title if you want. We're going to put it in a hat and then draw the name of the title tonight. Okay? If you're not here, you're not here. So sound good?
We'll figure out a way of getting paper and figure that out. And you have paper? No. To be very simple, 40 lines long, including titles, spacing, and all the spacing between lines.
40 or less.
40 or less, but it includes the returns, 60 characters wide, including spaces between words.
So it has to be that.
Yeah.
Yes, because we're going to do times 10 font.
Yeah. And thank you so
And
much.
that should fit on the page we have. So it's 60 by 40, like that.
For the size of the book.
Yeah.
Okay, can it be less than 60 by 40?
Yes, it
That's the maximum.
but that's the maximum field of print that I believe we are able to accommodate at this point in time.
And if you have any questions, feel free to also ask Antoinette, Buford, or Dan. Although I've been making the announcements and putting my face to this project, we're all like in this together, as well as you. Feel free. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so now the second show, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sanderell. Give him a round. Give Sanderell a round of applause. And David back. All right, now we're ready. Ready. All right.
Oh, wait, let me get the other board. I'll have 2.
Oh, you do?
You do?
I'm gonna turn this just a little bit. So
Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna focus in there.
I want to look
I'm
that
going to use
way.
this for airy fairy.
What?
Okay.
What?
Shh, be patient.
All will be made clear. All will be naked?
All will be made clear.
Oh.
Wow.
All right, here we go.
Give him some downers. All right, born. Born in fire, rage, love. Plugged in against many in disapproval. As with folk, it is music, protest of love. Sometimes hormones are loud, but quiet as a Miles Davis ballad of love, loss, feminine, in dream time. You need a clarion voice no matter what your music words. Make music as you would make love. Make love because you understand the beauty of it. Let the didgeridoo take you to dream time. We are bereft and requiem for the beauty given by the Aboriginal. Perhaps return of stolen land to begin. They are us, we are them. Different cultures, ways of being to instruct all humanity those parts that make us whole. Many parts, one family. Stop your brutishness. Miles plays music with the tinge of days gone by, of the good, the bad, the ugly. You know, the story of us.
Thank you. Love it.
All right, airy fairy. I am an airy fairy where things are well on my mountaintop clouds. I needn't look into the valleys. Everyone knows what's there. I need only go shopping, then get away. Safe on my mountaintop, protected from the storms, you'll never pull me from it. Life is good. I'm looking good for an airy fairy. I'll have a long, happy life in my airy fairy mind, body. Don't come to me with your truths, too negative. I'm living a positive life. I eat all the right foods, think all the good thoughts, medicate when no one's looking. Do tantric yoga, have great sex with all the right people. I have people around me who are always saying yes. Even when things seem sour, I make rhubarb strawberry pie, so life is sweet, positive. You can't shame an airy fairy. I have no shame or guilt unless guilt is gilded in gold. Love me, I am an airy fairy, and I am not at your service.
Yeah.
That's my little airy fairy.
Nicely played, David.
Thank you. Started when I was 6 on that machine.
Yes, well, this is called Humanity Dishonors Humanity. We dishonor our humanity daily. Now the state that knows how to pass a law against feeding hungry homeless, they will cite you, pay a fine to gain a let me start that over. We dishonor our humanity daily. Now the state that knows how passes a law against feeding hungry homeless. They will cite you, pay a fine, and gain a misdemeanor. Many people in this town are faced with food, home insecurity in a town that knows how. Humanity dishonors humanity. Indigenous people had no jails, old age homes, prisons. All were provided for. No one went hungry. Elders, youth, those without, those unable to provide for themselves were. Now that's how humanity works.
Yeah. David Erdogan. David Erdogan. And recorder, actually. Bill. Bill. No, Isabel.
Oh, Isabel.
Isabel. Who? Okay, she is new. This is her first Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Just get really close and we'll make sure you're framed perfectly. You are framed perfectly.
All right. So last summer I was in Europe doing a tour of Europe with my really good friend over there. And this was kind of our first time on our own. And everywhere was really different, but the one kind of like constant was like all the subway stations. So the subway. The subway was my home, bounteous like in Willy Wonka or Clockwork Orange, bosomed between a familiarity or indifference. Olympian escalators glowing sick green, leading to tiled halls inlaid with sacred writing. Precious items sacked in floral thank you bags, drowned in piss. I eat grapes off the shiny floors in Berlin. We are whisked away in a rattling carriage, all the way to Paris. €1.50 to go anywhere in Paris, but in Siena we pay 80 for fare evasion. We hold our breaths through tunnels and always put our feet up. Soon anywhere is different, same. We don't know the right people. I'll ride the underground subway, U-Bahn metro back and forth until I die. Someday I'll just slip off that ledge. I'm a little nervous.
It's okay. We appreciate everything, and you're great.
Thank you. All right, so this is suburban streets. Out in the suburban street night, across the bay from city lights, their cat in the window barely visible, walking past pastel cookie-cut houses, 11:30 and deathly quiet. Thinking of all those sleeping folks one on either side of the bed, incapacitated and sleep, unsettled leaves gently rub, branches moan. Sleep apnea plagues our proud upper middle class. They have to buy respirators to help suck that life air from the groaning trees. Someone had to plant those trees. The land is too encrusted with concrete. The housing market is driving the bunnies from the field. They're buying condos. I can't remember what pale color my parents' house is. The cat is still in the window. I won't be here forever, everyone else will. I'll leave my window open, undressing for bed and flirting with the branches. I hope they can hear me too, letting myself go in this carpeted cage. All right. Thank you. This is my last. Do I have enough time? Yeah. Okay. I met a boy in North Beach who lived across the street from the Beat Hotel, which was the main selling point. But North Beach, San Francisco, a cafe funeral reception in Cafe Triste, where Godfather was written and a girl wants to be a poet. She waits for a boy to text her. She drove to the top of a hill and back down it. After her homebound friends left, the boy is kind and beautiful. When she reads him her poems, he listens and smiles, then changes the subject. He sings her songs she can fall asleep to. They might make love like drowning and kiss like running. She thinks they molded into each other and are one now. 1 month after they parted, she texts him, "How are you? The boy has found a job. The girl is lonely." When they meet, the boy grips her shoulders and kisses her. It's different now. He isn't sorry. He was waiting for that text, expecting it. In the car, she leaves him, and he asks for his sweatshirt back. Thank you.
Thank you. Here's the bell. Is Bill here? Yeah. Bill Mercer. Bill left. All right. Antoinette then, and then our me in the evening day with Antoinette. Give her a nice round of applause here. Whose artwork will grace the cover of our anthology, just so you know.
I'm excited about that.
We had to give you credit in the print, of course.
Yes.
Cover by.
Yes.
1926, Super Zen Master speaks in Oakland. Free will, desire forms his talk. Monks wearing brown sit on stage. No difference, no separation. Like 8.5 by 11 white sheet of paper, sides do not exist alone. Front, back, sorrow holds happiness. Inner species, inner being, inter are. Elements of things not seen inherently are part of all things, like meat and alcohol production, used grains and water needed to feed all. Standing in a wispy white night dress, strong calves bent down, lift black Labrador, they sit together to tame the wolf.
Nice.
All words ever said worldwide through time belongs to poets. Inspiration like chimes resonate out. Passion resides at home. Laid upon another, a fragile kindness offered like sweetness of your tongue on mine. Desire shows up still subject to interpretation. Blue jay with acorn in mouth, winked from another sphere. Sure that was you looking through God's eyes. Horse carriage galloping without reins finds her way back, revolving over under layers of love.
Yeah. Oh, you want to do it now? We're going to do the drawing for the title of the anthology. It should take a moment. Is that ready?
Tell me if this fits your left fit though?
Yes.
Okay, I'll submit that.
Yeah,
I'll read it and
I'll make sure about that.
Please.
Oh, is there any other offerings for the? Yeah. There's another one back there. So what we've done is ask people to submit their ideas for the title of the anthology, and wait. You need a piece of paper. You need a piece of paper. Hold on a second. Now, don't get excited. Hurry up, we got to do this. And David Erdreich's waiting to do his show.
Oh, that's okay.
No, it's not okay. I want to hurry him up.
Oh, then that just
always
makes you
do
slow
that.
down.
I know, always, you two. What's wrong with you two? Always, every day.
Oh, it sounds like a terrible idea. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, so drum roll.
Grounds are sacred.
What is it?
Grounds are sacred.
Grounds are sacred.
Grounds are sacred.
Okay, we got it. Grounds are sacred.
Grounds are sacred.
Yep, I can come up with good ones.
Is that yours?
No. I wanted to see whose it was. I figured if I did that, someone would say, but I did that. All right, give David Erdreich, our mini feature of the evening, a round of applause. The call man is here.
Okay, I'm going to submit this one to the anthology. You've heard it at least twice, but I'll do it again because it's
twice.
Yeah, I like this one. This is called To Speak to an Operator. To speak to an operator, press 0. To operate a speaker, press 7. To get an unfair advantage in an election, press 1 for more money. To find a decent restaurant, press 8. To get your just desserts, go back to the main menu and multiply by pi. To speak to a different machine, press 3.5. To leave an irrational number, divide by 0. To attend to personal hygiene, press flesh. To attend an opening, press close. To suffer a headache, pressure. To speak to a news representative, pound the press key. To play football, hold the line. To hear more elevator music, press interminable wait. To urinate off a mountaintop, precipice. To skip this message, prestige. To discover the meaning of life, press on.
All right.
Okay, so I made that stupid prompt air relevant. And I
Thank
wrote two
you.
poems. You're welcome, anytime. So I have 2 air relevant poems. Here's the first one. Since I am a chanterelle collector.
Chanterelle
collector. Mycelium, underground, revealing them. Some stink, others subtle aroma. Just might halt your melanoma, and that's relevant. So anyhow.
It's air.
Erupting mushrooms dropping spores, now littering the forest floor. Rains have mingled, clouds depart. Come burst, egg bubble. Deploy, do start. To arrange gills in radial display. A central stalk may bend and sway, or else glom on to wood as shelf. A stiffened ledge, a leading edge. Underside,
some sporting tubes or milky substance with which they are lubed. Mayhap on caps sticky or slime, there tiny worms, snails, and slugs climb. Puffball, white fried, taste delight, but when too long it's been around, can't eat, cause poof, the spores are brown. It's become a deflated mound. Compost masters of decay, in warmth of sun now greet the day. And the other irrelevant. Irreverent, global warming, how charming. Indent, well chewed, eschewed, gesundheit, length and width, without which, Goldilocks in a pointed hat, compromise, comparison, Rex Harrison, Harrigan, Harridan, meridian, media, medieval, meddlin, medicine, take your clover once a day, undercover, exposed, positive expression, phrase, phase, afraid, frayed, at loose ends, at land's end, what lies beyond? Truth be told, bell be told, Toll House cookies, lose your cookies, barf, wharf and woof, Bowser, Doogie Howser, domicile, style, hairdo, boogie don't. Is this a list poem or a listless poem? Restless, sleep more, sleep over, look under, just suppose, support stockings. Coal in your stockings is making the air change to death. Cushion. Playing billiards, shooting pool, banging balls is pretty cool. English on it, in the pocket, kick shot, bank shot. Break the pack up with a rocket, 8 ball, 9 ball, keeping score. A wasted life at the candy store. In position with an easy stroke, not like some hophead blowing smoke. Plain geometry in plain view, run the rack, use follow through. Talk to the chalk, you're right on cue. Here's a haiku. Neutral is an art with humans who want you to start again. Neutral is an art with humans who want you to take sides. Balance scales. These are all in the last couple of days. I could write about your pussy, I could write about your cunt, about your sweet vagina, Joan Fontaine and Alfred Lunt.
Alfred?
Yeah. But writing about fucking is really such a bore. It's only when you touch me that I know what is in store. Kink Midas. Poor Donald. The only thing he ever learned to do was steal. Everything he touches turns to shiest. Bang the drum too loudly, shoot the biggest gun, send the drones to funerals, weddings. Killing is such fun. Obama, Colin Powell embrace the CIA. If Tan or Brown, we'll shoot them down, unarmed, at work, at play. This policy is foreign. Murder at its worst. This is the land of freedom with which we have been cursed. Domestic goes ballistic. Police force armed with tanks. Mindset becomes, it's us or them. For this, we all give thanks. X co-op for Xbox. Promote annihilation. Conspiracy meets secrecy. Paranoid ideation. Our military might exceeds a bleeding world. Stem the tide. Reverse the ride. New policy unfold. No drilling in the Arctic. Let's have a quiet lunch. Invasion is unnecessary. Don't throw the first punch.
Yeah.
And some other old ones. What do we got here? I think I'll just do that. So,
Oh, I like that one.
yeah, there we go. To the point. Kicked it out again. Yeah, it's happening a lot.
Stop the crime at the him and the hamina. Wait, yeah, the blue light.
Yes. To the point. Those baby thorns that pierce my flesh, the tiny ones that enter fresh, flagrant rose, floribunda, hard to find when they creep under, bright of day, dark of night. I cannot sleep. Turn on the light. Pin from cushion is withdrawn. Red, white, and orange edge the lawn. Clip yellowing leaves, pinch aphids, squish. Your lavender accents my wish. Fresh cut 3-inch on dining table, a scent, a hint, and I am able to extract from fingertip to tweeze it out, some long-lost ship plucked from its moorings. One drop drips, then rinse it, washes down the drain. Relieved of that exquisite pain. and that was written by Sam Enchanted Evening.
Oh, Sam Enchanted Evening. You will meet us. Never mind.
This is from 4/7/11. This is called Another Man's Hands. About a month ago, I lost my favorite leather gloves, calfskin, so soft and pliable, I could pick up change. The day before my trip, just after paying my rent, there in the road was a pair of leather gloves. Must have been dropped by a gardener. Tan with darker brown stains on first two fingers of right hand, plus here and there a few flecks of dark green paint, reinforced across the palms, a tight fit yet comfortable. I was wearing another man's hands. As a truck driving recycler, I always found my gloves on the road, dropped by either other careless truckers. I've lost a pair to myself. Usually, you find one hand. A pair is far less common. I'm wearing another man's hands. I don't have to name names. There's only one of you. Just under 30 years ago, we parted ways. You said, no more. My heart split in two. You got married, had a son. Marriage was not good. You divorced. So much for that other man's hands. A couple years ago, I sought you out. You didn't even recognize me. You were getting remarried. You were very happy. I felt good for you and really bad for me at the same time. You were in another man's hands. 27 years. Did I think your life would stand still? Ego, fool, I had no clue. I've had 21 consummated lovers and a dozen and a half more who could have, but for circumstantial, didn't. At one point I could name each woman. I can't anymore. A couple one-night stands, some short stops, and 6 at least 2-year relationships, some considerably longer, including 3 marriages ending in divorce. You were my only heart song. Is it possible you had a better love connection than ours? Yes, it's possible. Is it probable? I doubt it. You had the most beautiful breasts in the world. You fed your son. Those breasts have changed. When I ate at the Y, I could hold you in these hands and send you to paradise. It only happened once, but it happened. The rest of our lovemaking was also almost always mutual connect. So, women who make fake orgasms, you're in the wrong man's hands. Close your vagina, open your mouth, and talk to that fool. He's a man. He may not know shit. He needs to be gentler. He needs to learn to wait for his partner. Let her go first if need be. Keep going. She may hit multiples. Stop if she isn't feeling it's okay. Restrict your penis at the base, just above your testicles if need be. But wait, for God's sakes, because if you wait for God's sakes and you climax together, you will achieve Godhead if only for 5 seconds. It's in your hands. I miss her. But relationships have gone progressively downhill of late, so I've retired. I put my penis on the shelf at night and retrieve it in the morning. You're in another man's hands. Looking at these gloves, I too am in another man's hands. Paul Newman was reportedly once asked why he didn't have many lovers, and they answered, why should I eat hamburger when I have steak at home? When a married couple is in love, you can see it in their eyes and their children's eyes. They're in love when they're not fucking too.
Thank you so much. Paul H. He might have left. Paul? Okay. Then that brings us to Wendy. Wendy? Paul H. Oh, you're Paul H?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Give her a round. He's new. He's new.
I'm not new. You did this last week.
Oh,
okay.
well.
I don't want to make you feel bad, though.
Well, no, that's good. We need to practice, because if we don't do that, then people get, they get what you know. Thank you, David, for a wonderful mini feature. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. So Wendy, you're next. Okay, sorry.
This is kind of like a love letter that I never sent. Yeah. On yet another Thanksgiving, my thoughts keep returning to you. Why does it pretend that my most sensitive moments fly into your bedrock? I still don't know how to say I'm sorry, though hard at the point of becoming masochistic. Will I somehow find myself back in that land of paradise and come across your solar hair? What would I find shining back at me in that galactic moment? Well, I don't feel I would have to guess, for the sun is with us every day, isn't it? The words I choke on could fill canyons, while these strokes harness some sort of infrastructure and fluidity. As far as words may matter at all, these are the best I can muster to dictate. And for this moment, my heart beats one more breath wider from that barbed-wired stranglehold that is daily imposed by living. Whether this is self-imposed or not, I gave up wondering long ago. The thought of you just allows whatever sweetness is within me to escape more soundly than my nightly dragon's breath can witness. With sails of cool, calm fragrance, combing the daffodils in your fields of crawling courage. It's who you are, but why do I still feel you within me? Thanks. I wrote this today, so however it sounds, that's how it sounds. By the sunlight, it dies, and the fluorescent beam, it flies. Jury eyeballs with restless coffins behind, my cobwebs shriek with the exhausting exuberance. Could it be that last raindrop drifts so sensuously and clearly into the twilight of moonlight, glistening along that tinsel strand which still denies that which connects it? Silver starlight seems bored with other colloquialisms, such as which way the sun sets or whom shall die tomorrow. Which of the four horsemen draws a carriage, and how do they decide who gets the flaming sword? Sorry, hold on, I'm still going. Pete's cobbler and sutured manuscripts, what else is there to speak of? Past the dust of childhood, and what is handed down as required reading as if it were a blood transfusion. Talking only remembers fantasies yet unheard, and the mind's follies dance out in public like a magic carpet in a fairy tale. It's almost as if it always belonged. But what of these grand gestures in language? What is this course weaved in the monochromatic still of night like it's something to say? Well, have you one better? The sea never asked me to breathe in its crashing air, and silence still reeks of more potential than most people's dreams. Here, have a cookie. I think that's it. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And thank you for being patient. Okay. Oh yeah, your jacket. And now Wendy Walters, my wife of many years. Oh, yeah. Is that good?
That's good.
Is it? Okay, thank you, Dave.
Is that really good?
Yeah, sounds good and clear, framing you in beautifully.
Okay, I just want to start with a few haiku. I wrote this autumn. And then home. Okay. First day of summer, stopping to pause. Coyotes' hungry eyes plead. Daylight fading now, activities slow their pace. Two owls begin to hoot. Last day of summer, walking barefoot in the grass, nostalgic sunset. Fires scorch the landscape. Strangers comfort each other, searching for remnants. Smell of smoke at school. Students stay inside, wear masks, hard to concentrate. Disaster hits twice, bullets and fires in one town. Heroes wipe their tears. When will humans learn violence will never work to solve real problems? Resist fear's hatred, ignorance going nowhere. Only love will last. Remember laughter. Sorrow sometimes comes and goes. New doors can open.
I haven't read haiku for a while. Okay, this is a poem I wrote a while back that I especially like, one of Dan's favorites, called Dancing with the Birds. I was out in the Arboretum, or at Stowe Lake. Today, little birds, I saw you on the side of the pathway as I walked in rapture around Stowe Lake in the ever-renewing magic of Golden Gate Park. You moved in a most amazing dance-like way, so I stopped and watched you for a long time. One of you tilted your head to one side until your whole body leaned that way. Then spread the feathers of the wing on your other side wide, after which the other of you did the very same thing. And this all ended up, or so I thought, as you both stood up erect at the very same moment. Were you drying your feathers? Soon, all the motion began again. First one, then the other, tilting your head to one side until your whole body leaned that way, then spreading the wings, the feathers of the wing on the other side wide, followed by both of you standing up erect, simultaneously. Were you flirting with the flame of your life? I don't know what you were up to. I'm still hankering to learn your language. But I too have a secret that you may not know. I was in your dance the whole time, right there with you, seeing it, feeling it, loving it, and with the great imagination bestowed upon my humble mind by your presence, being it, out there in the park, doing your mysterious dance thing. Tiny?
Yeah, very tiny. Yeah.
I'll stop.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Walker. And now we have Hal, then Garrett, then Greg, then Peter, and then Udamon, and then Sandra. All right. And give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. A worthy, as they used to say, all
Thank
day.
you. Put up a little bit.
There we go.
Well, my interpretation of the theme was heir relevant as in one who inherits. One who inherits...
in a relevant manner.
Well, perhaps the inheritance is relevant. It's relevant to the subject of this poem, which is a seasonal one. The Journey of the Maggie by T.S. Eliot. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter, and the camels, galled, slow-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camelmen running away and wanting their liquor and women, and the night fires going out, and the lack of shelter, the towns hostile, the cities unfriendly, and the villages dirty and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. In the end, we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices ringing in our ears that this was all folly. Then, at dawn, we came down to a little narrow valley, wet below the snow line, with a running stream and a water mill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky, and an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with vine leaves over the lintel, 6 hens at an open door, dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wineskins. But there was no information. And so we continued, arriving that evening, not a moment too soon, finding the place. It was, you may say, satisfactory. All this, I am telling you, was a long, long time ago, and I would do it again. But set down this. Were we led all that way for birth or death? There was a birth. We had evidence, and no doubt. I had seen birth and death before, and had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, yet no longer at ease here in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another death.
Thank you. Now, Robin. Oh, yeah, there you go. Garrett Murphy. Give him a round as he comes up here. A wonderful poet from the East Bay. Always capable, always tells it like it is.
Is there still a way to submit a piece?
Yeah, we'll talk to us and we'll figure that out.
Okay, because my first piece will also be my submission to this anthology. It's called "Here Come the Refugees from the Great American Way." Deadlier than a Charlottesville supremacist, more dangerous than a shooter of synagogues, more frightening than a BNRO cops, who after all are just very fine folks. And you have, drum roll and all, the dreaded refugees of Ginsberg America, armed with little more than the shirts on their backs, polluting the air that we all must breathe. Shelter your wives and your children after salvaging yourself, for they have come here to despoil our great land as no rabbit gun-toting bigot ever could, while they flee their own world, ravaged and tarnished by forces mostly made in USA. And they have nerve to return our gratitude, ungrateful. There once was a time so sad long past when being pale meant you needed more color. Work in progress, which I came up with earlier tonight, is called Johnny Got His. Little Johnny Kelly came onto the scene, military credentials, cold star hero, and impeccable character, just what they said was what the chump needed, and adult in the room. Inevitable was a changed chump, but lo and behold, we got chump change indeed, instead. Or did chumps simply unleash the real Johnny the Kid? A congresswoman insulted, the sort of Oreo in the lot given the boot. No longer was Johnny the adult in the room, and now Johnny Kelly brought down to a chump level. A charged chump, or a changed chump if you will, now himself is given the boot. Yep, Johnny sure got his.
Oh, let's have that.
Greg Pond.
The erudite Mr. Greg Pond will be reading next.
This Greg Pond's actually, oh my God, I was just about to call you.
Well, call him what?
Greg Pond.
Oh. For dinner. And give him a round. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make this happen. It looks like Peter, then Nunderman, and Sandrell after this wonderful performance here.
This is long, so I'm just gonna edit it. I'm gonna just read part of it. Anyway, this is entitled "Lover in the Car." Left in the car, following the long, winding ride, where the lovers of gay brothers wait because we're not allowed inside. Mustered the greatest effort to save face while killing time, as I look in from outside my lover's family's lives. Seated in the car, feeling sweat slide down my spine. Promise to take the high road and not complain or whine, but this odd creature treatment leaves me deaf, dumb, and blind. As eyes spy from the kitchen window, to glimpse the creep in the passenger seat of their brother's rented ride. Arrived in the car, approaching Christmas Day, mouth too dry, too chilly to smile, trying not to act too gay. 40 minutes seem like hours, too long to wait a while. The numbers on the clock move slowly as hands out of pockets, braving cold to change radio dial. Waited in the car, watching ornaments and lights, evergreens decked for display. But parked across the street and left off the page sits the Pagliacci clown, a San Francisco freak, an out-of-town performer stranded on an empty stage. Stuck in the car, sitting, steaming, shivering with cold, so close to Kwanzaa, so far from home. Because here, season's greetings only extend to straight couples, children, and selected friends, to born-again church folk or heterosexual kin, but not to those whose wrists are bent, or who act like women but look like men. Company in the car, lover back at my side, who didn't want to visit without me, though I told him I'd be fine. Still, I could see the pain on his face and count the tears in his eyes when the prodigal son was welcomed home while his lover waited outside. Headed in the car to catch the next airline flight, getting the hell out of Dodge post-haste to spend a Merry Christmas night with family and friends who value my worth, who wish peace and goodwill to all on earth, who don't believe some are blessed while others cursed, especially at this time of year. Though my lover's folks made it very clear, they've got crosses heavier than me to bear, and I wish I just didn't still care so much.
Looks like Peter with an H. Peter?
How?
How? Peter Howe. Okay, I guess not. So I guess it's Dudeman and then Sandra. So you're
the last guy.
Yeah.
Next to the last, okay? Yeah.
Well, Peter.
Ramses right there.
Oh, maybe
Well, Peter left. We have Peter, then you. We don't have.
Ramses.
Okay, so why don't we just have him come up? He's next, and then you.
Yeah, okay.
All right. This is your first time here? The first timer!
I like that introduction. Can you do it one more time?
Make it up. There we go.
I'm going to sing a song. Thank you so much. I'm going to sing a song. Somebody just say 1 in a million.
1 in a million.
The song is called 1 in a Million You. You ready for it?
All right.
All right. 1 in a million. Change of a lifetime. So compassion. See to me a stroke of love on me. 1 in a million. Thank you.
Oh, you have to put your name on there, because we didn't have it there, so.
Sure will.
All right, well, that way when I mention, they'll say, this guy has a voice, you know, he come up here.
Yes, Larry Rev, Grand Central Station.
Oh, yeah, put that on there so I know which, so I can attribute it.
Grand
And
Central.
Durderman is next, and then we got Sandra closing us out, so give him a round, and you take care of midnight.
All right, Grand Central Station. Larry Rev. Right. Thank you.
Ah, shit. Ah, shit. Let us go to time and leave the graveyard behind. Let's go forward in time. Let's go to the extraterrestrial being that come here. Ah, shit, man. Like they said, that day, that week, that year, they killed 150 years ago. They wiped out 10,000. I would not believe it. In a place called Paradise. Sapphire roses today. They wiped them out and carved. Hey. They wept, the women wept, but they didn't realize, they said one day, the first shall come will be the dog tribe. This big nation spoke, the Kodiak Riders. And they said, the telegraph pole did it. But they forgot. They cut their feet off and left them. You should see that day.
Bulldozer. You gonna be backing him up? All right, there we go. Oh, we got a triple coming up here. Let's move those out of the way, and then we'll take care of these fancy door prizes here. All right.
I'm gonna do the Dragway walk. You read that one? I'm gonna do that.
Do what?
I'm gonna do Dragway walk first.
Okay.
But you already
Yeah.
I want to show them. All right. Of course, we have David Erdreich again, and Dudemon's going to join us when he feels it's appropriate. So, all right. This is from an anthology that I'm very fortunate enough to be part of, but more importantly, and seriously, there are a lot of good poets, and I'm a really lucky guy to be in this book with people like Avacha, Kim Shuck, Chris Blackwell, I can go on. It's $10 probably at Adobe Books, and probably Alleycat, they may have it as well.
What's it called?
It's called The City is Already Speaking, and it's volume 2, but they also have volume 1 there, and a lot of good poets in that, like D. Allen, for one that I remember, T.M. Matthews. All right, so this is called Jaguar Walks. Jaguar walks night, wind blows through jungle, warning sounds as how the monkeys howl, are those who sing hoo 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 on top. Choirs of birds, animals sound warnings. Jaguar is passing by, feminine, giver, taker of life. Jaguar displays her beautiful colored coats of yellows, browns, spots, walks regally, protector, guardian of night. Chorus of sounds persist as she casually strolls. She, ruler, has no one to fear this night. No human borders need to be crossed or fires set to run from. With full stomach from recent kill, she enjoys her walk through her domain. Always on the lookout for a game for pounce or waterways to swim. Jaguar walks. All right, this one's going to be called Made of Stars. I read, I think, this one last night, but it's new. All right. Made of stars. Star power is something we all have. Made of stars is that star power that makes us shine, explode. Our beauty lies in our minds as well as our ugliness, fears. A star is born, lives, sheds its light, gives life to who sees, nourishing sun for no one. Stars, giver of life, get too close and it'll be the taker who burns, turns you to ashes. Lights of colors spinning, blinking in your eye if turned to see. The blinking light keeps time to unheard music below, above our hearing. Sight, sounds of galaxies, universes, as it goes forever, expands the circle. As nothing lasts, even beats go out of time. Takes time for things to catch up again, to be in time. Chaos reigns in these places we call home. And this is an older piece, but I want to hear how it sounds. Sacred sites, we got sacred sites. Got a sacred site? We can build. Have a legal problem? We are USA, and we can fix all your problems. Problems you didn't even know you had. We are USA. Say you found some Indian artifacts, and you need to get on with your building project? We have experts who can help you with that. If nothing else, they can confuse the issue so no one knows whether they're coming or going. Are there any Indians left? Oh, I do digress. All legal problems, such as if it's illegal, we can get a law passed that makes it legal. So, as well as the other way around, that's the beauty of USA. We're an empire built on law and order. Say you don't want trouble from those pesky Indians? No need to fret. We can handle any protest. We just absorb it. They'll eventually get tired, but we remain. We are USA. You say there are laws that mandate that you have to uphold as an elected official. Don't worry, we're USA. We have ways around that. You can just ignore it and hope that no one catches on, or just take the rest and get sued. But if sued, you don't pay. It's the taxpayers that pay. We are USA. Sacred sites? Yeah, we can save you from these sacred sites.
by selling your sacred rights to get rid of their sacred sites. We can build. We are USA. Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
So most people do their skis in their hand, man. And I don't know what they call it.
Thank you again.
Just hand in his pocket.
Oh, Richard.
Yes.
Oh, for me? Okay, I'm taking it. All right, so when you came in here, you signed when you signed on the sheet, you signed next to a number.
Hey, why don't you announce that we won't be here for the next 3 weeks?
I will be announcing that. We're not going to be here for the next 3 weeks, not next week, not the week after. We come back January 9th. Thank you, David, for reminding me yet again. So when you signed in, you're next to a number, and now these cards, which have numbers on them, will be used to randomly select individuals up here to take these fancy prizes designed with your mind in mind. So, lure of the lyric. There was a young nun from Tours, but I won't go any further.